Good morning, Marcela. How are you doing? I can't hear you. I think you're on mute.
Yes, I was on mute. Can you see my screen?
I mean, I could see you right now in the background.
But can you see my screen?
No.
Okay, that's odd.
Oh, yes, I can. What am I talking about? Of course I can. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So you meant like your like full desktop. No, like the presentation. Yes, I can see it.
Yes. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I had everything ready. Okay, hold on. Hold on.
Any idea how many attendees today?
No, we didn't have any kind of pre-registration, so we don't.
Just a quick question. I'm trying to remember, when people type in questions, does everybody see the questions, or they don't get to see until we answer them?
You're muted, Daniela.
Sorry about that. I do that all the time. I'm going to ask everyone to use the Q&A function, so that way everyone sees the questions all at once. In the chat, they have the option of only chatting with the panelists or with all attendees. But I'm going to ask that all questions, so we could keep track of them and make sure we answer them all, go in the Q&A. Okay, I think we should probably begin. Be respectful and mindful of everyone's time. So good morning to all the attendees. Welcome to our MACC webinar. My name is Daniela Quesada. I am the project manager for the Mexican American Cultural Center. We're very excited today to have the design team share with you progress and ideas that we've come up with so far. We want this webinar to be informative, but also engaging. And so we really want to hear from you. We want to answer any questions that you may have and get your feedback on how we're doing. So if you're not familiar with Zoom, there is a Q&A function. So if you hover over or you have control of your screen, you could see there's a Q&A button. If you could please put all your questions in this format, we'll be sure to keep track of them, and the panelists and myself will do our best to answer them, whether we answer them live verbally or we type up the answer. Your questions are visible to everyone in this format. And let me show you the agenda of what we will be doing today. So you could see that we have some information sessions, but we also have some Q&As. We have some polls, and so we We want to make sure that throughout the entire presentation, you get the information that you need. Any questions that come up, please feel free to put them in the Q&A, even if we're not at the Q&A session. And again, we'll do our best to answer those. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce Ben Fife. He's the Assistant Director for MCAD, the Museums and Cultural Affairs Department.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Let me see, am I on?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ben Fife. I am the Assistant Director for the Museums and Cultural Affairs Department for the City of El Paso. And I've been involved with this project since the very beginning, when voters approved it in 2012. Over the last number of years, we've had a variety of community input sessions, as well as a committee put together by Mayor and Council to help inform various decisions related to the MACC. And so I'd like to begin by thanking everybody for joining us on a Saturday. We know you're very busy. I also want to ask for a little bit of patience. This is, I believe, only the second time we have used this platform for a community meeting, which allows us to continue to engage with the community while maintaining social distancing. So we are very appreciative if there are a couple of technical glitches throughout this presentation. The last thing I will mention is that this meeting is not to advocate either for or against the MACC, the location of the MACC, the naming of the MACC, the fact that it is specific to the Mexican American community. All of those sort of decisions have been vetted and made over the years with a variety of community input sessions and approved at various points through council. So what this meeting really is for is to help us finalize design and make sure we're able to deliver a project that is really best suited for the needs of El Paso, for our artists, for our cultural practitioners, and to celebrate the heritage and vibrancy of Mexican American life and culture here on the US border. So thank you, and I look forward to the discussions.
With that, I'm going to introduce Marcela Atolini, Project Manager for Exigo, and she will start the presentation. One thing I did forget to mention earlier is that we are recording this webinar so that it will be available on the MACC website for anyone who wasn't able to join us today. They could see the full presentation, they could see the full recording of this. We will also be posting on the MACC website all the polls that will be given today, and people will have a chance to give feedback on the website and take the polls, share the polls with anybody else that they like. So with that, Marcela.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mexican American Cultural Center Committee meeting. We have a great presentation for you today. We will be presenting the history of the project, where we are and where we are going. I'm Marcela Tolini, Project Manager for Exigo Architecture. Also with me, the panelists are Marcy Goodwin and Cameron Boudrum from M. Goodwin Museum Planning, and Christine Skagland, Senior Associate from Tenike Landscape Architects. First, we wanted to start with a bit of history from the project. In 2012, the Quality of Life Bond was approved. Ever since its approval by the voters, this project has been unique. The MACC is the only bond project that had a specialized co-counsel appointed BOAC subcommittee focused solely on developing project recommendations. As you know, the MACC will occupy a portion of what is now the main library. We're looking at aspects of this co-location. We have seen different types of projects throughout the country where a shared location by two different entities creates a formula for success, and here are some examples. The Brooklyn Public Library and the Performing Arts Space and Archives, the San Diego Main Library and the high school, the New York Schoenberg Center for Research and Black Culture, the Boston Public Library and NPR Broadcast Studio, and others. The construction budget, including the FF&E for the MACC, is $10,755,000, and the library $4,829,516. This is important to show you because this is the construction and furniture, fixtures, and equipment budget for both projects. As we both know, the MACC will be co-located at the El Paso Main Library in the heart of El Paso Downtown Arts District and in close proximity to the existing tourist and cultural amenities. We have the Children's Museum, the San Jacinto Plaza, the Abraham Chavez Theater, and of course, right on Cleveland Square, the Museum of History. Also on Franklin Avenue.
Okay, your sound disappeared. Daniela?
No, Marcela, we can't hear you. You're. Marcela?
Marcela, we can't hear you.
I think she's working on it.
Okay.
In the meantime, let me kind of talk about this slide that she has up. We're really excited about what we're calling a new cultural campus for the city of El Paso, where you could see that we have a lot of programmatic functions that have to do with cultural activities and bringing families to downtown, and all within a walkable center in the urban core of El Paso. So you see that already the main library is co-located in the same block as the El Paso Museum of History. And so the MACC is going to really fit in quite nicely within this area, because we also have Cleveland Square, which will be an activated plaza for all the museum and library functions that are going to be happening here. But we're also going to be just up the street from the El Paso Children's Museum. We're going to be in close proximity to the Plaza Theater, the El Paso Museum of Art, San Jacinto Plaza. And so we really want to make this area activated for families to come and enjoy the cultural programmatic new features that we're putting a lot of public investment in. And I think Marcela's back.
Yes, sorry about that. I got disconnected and I do apologize. So what is a cultural center? Marcy?
Okay. So first of all, we'd like to explain that the design has not yet begun. The things you're going to see are concepts, and what we are doing in sharing this with you is trying to understand your preliminary thoughts about the project from now moving forward as we solidify these ideas into design. This will be a cultural center. It's not a museum. It's different. A cultural center celebrates, examines, and shares with the general public all of the organization's many cultural forms and subjects. There's not just one form. And unlike a museum, a cultural center has no collection. It doesn't collect. It shows, it offers, it presents, and it participates. Art museums tend to be larger in size and they're focused on art. Meanwhile, cultural centers tend to be smaller in size and they offer a wide variety of cultural expressions, including art. There are many Mexican American cultural centers around the US and especially in Texas. We think that El Paso's location on the border between the US and Mexico allows it to offer a special or unique perspective. Okay. So cultural centers serve all of the region's communities, not just the people and subjects represented by the center's culture. They serve everyone. And for a cultural center, education is the primary deliverable. Learning is usually interactive, lively, and hands-on. The idea is that you remember when you do. When you engage, when you participate, you remember things forever. Cultural centers offer activities and learning experiences about every aspect of a people or culture. And this could include lifestyles, art, music, drama, dance, literature, poetry, history, popular heroes and demons, genealogy, family, community, and even the culture's dreams. So cultural centers always represent multiple stories, time periods, or histories, not just a single version. not just a single narrative or time period. Now, the MACC will be a division of the City of El Paso's Museum and Cultural Affairs Department, MCAD. It will collaborate regularly and on an ongoing basis with all of the city's other museums and cultural event spaces. And it'll serve the people of the larger El Paso region. It will serve all possible audiences. There's no specific audience. Everybody will be invited, young and old, families, kids, students, seniors, everybody. So it'll also be a destination for El Paso's tourists and residents. Now, we've been working on a mission statement. The MCAD staff have been putting this together. This is still in process, but this is the mission statement today, which is to celebrate the dynamic traditions and resiliency of our border cultures through vibrant arts experiences and creative engagement. It'll be tweaked a little, but that's pretty much the direction we're going in. Now, there are many other Mexican-American cultural centers. We're going to show you some from around the country. Some of these our firm, M. Goodwin Museum Planning, has worked on. This is one of them. It's in two of the oldest buildings that are in Los Angeles. There aren't too many old buildings left. And this is the La Plaza de Cultura y Artes. It's in downtown LA. There's also MACC Museum, which isn't officially a Mexican-American cultural center, but it has all of the functions of a Mexican-American culture. We have also worked on this one. This is in downtown Austin. Okay, then we have the Emma Barrientos Mexican-American Cultural Center. That's owned by the City of Austin, and that's in Austin near the river. There is the Mexican Cultural Center in Philadelphia. The International Latino Cultural Center in Chicago. I should mention that in Austin, the Barrientos Center is now expanding, and the International Latino Cultural Center, which had a very strong focus on performance and film, is now expanding to have more education and more exhibitions. Now, MACC will have programming, what we call programming. Programming means all the stuff that happens inside the building. So there are spaces, and there are programming means a different thing in terms of spaces within the building. Programming is how we describe the ways we want to use the building. So there'll be a lobby, and that lobby will have multiple functions. On the right is the Marco in Monterrey, Mexico, which I worked on with Ricardo Legorreta. And those are all different kinds of ways of looking at the lobby. The lobby isn't just a dead space, it's alive, and there'll be events there. There'll be an exhibit gallery at the MACC, and it will be a flexible space to show different shows all year round. It will be a professional space to be able to have works from local artists, from national and even international artists. Okay, there'll also be a catering kitchen and a cafe kitchen. We're going to have a cafe on the roof, and there will be a catering kitchen for events. There will be a multi-purpose event space, which we call the Black Box Theater. And that will be with the Black Box Theater, Black Box just kind of means you can do anything you want inside it. And you can have banquets, you can have performances, music, theater, dance, meetings, conferences, seminars, whatever. The catering kitchen will support events and also the cafe on the roof. There'll also be a cooking classroom for people of all ages, from 9 to 90, and maybe even a little younger than 9. And there will be classes ongoing in this space, and it'll be an interactive kitchen. Okay. There will also be a community gallery for up and coming artists from the community and that will allow people who are emerging artists place to show their work, and also a place for students at the center. There'll be a dance acting studio that will allow people to learn professional skills and also to participate in Mexican and Mexican American culture via dance and movement. Okay, there's also a makerspace to allow people of all ages, kids and seniors, to learn how to use computers and various kinds of technological and tech interaction, and to learn to be sophisticated about how these are put together. There will also be a digital art studio for photography, film, and video. And in that, as well as bookmaking and so on, and that will include design and all of the skills that go along with digital art. There will be a hands-on art studio for more traditional things like painting, certain kinds of clay, and drawing and so on. And again, these are for people of all ages. And there'll be an artist in residence studio where artists will be invited to work there and talk with visitors and explain their work. And they'll have a period of residency. They're not going to live in there. They're going to work in there. Now, we'll also have an oral history recording studio, again, for people of all ages, to talk about their own history and their lives, but also to learn how to record and make sound recordings, and also for performing artists to record their work. On the roof, we'll have a dining and bar area that will have an incredible view of El Paso skyline. And in that, it'll be a really terrific place to sit, especially at the end of the day and look out, or at night and have parties, or just hang out. We'll have a bar, and that area will be adjacent to the dining area. And all of that will be served by the catering kitchen on the ground floor. Okay, now this is what we call a bubble diagram. And this refers to adjacencies. And what it means is that certain spaces need to be near other spaces. When we first looked at the site, we realized that there are many spaces on the ground floor that need to be kept public. So our concept in this was to allow maximum occupancy and to have the primary public spaces on the ground floor. And that means that the primary public spaces are the entry lobby, of course, the bathrooms, the auditorium, which is existing, the exhibit gallery, and the black box theater multi-purpose space. And then also we'll have a cooking classroom there next to the catering kitchen, as well as a loading dock that's shared with the library. Then the second floor will adapt the library's second floor spaces, which have a low ceiling, and then we'll have the MACC staff offices, meeting rooms, community gallery, and the dance acting studio, the oral history music studio, the media arts workshop, the wet or studio art classroom, and the dry studio art classroom, and for digital media, and then the artist in residence studio. On the roof, this is a little bit of an adjacency diagram for how the dining and bar area will work, and how it will have support areas to get you up and down and to take food and trash back and forth. Now here you see the site plan. The MACC shares with two wonderful entities. One is the El Paso Museum of History, and the other is the main library. There will be participatory and shared development of all kinds of programming. And then Christine Skaglin will talk to you about the site in a little bit in terms of where it says shade structures or whatever, about how we might use those spaces. This was an early diagram. Then, Christine, you want to talk?
Hi, everyone. I'm with Tenite Landscape Architects. The imagery here depicts some of our aspirations and goals for the Plaza space that would lead you into the new Black Box Theater and MACC. We believe that this space should aspire to invite people into the space, provide flexible uses for events and demonstrations and seating for shade and passive use, but also for viewing of presentations and other visual arts. We believe that this should be an elevated space as reflected in enhanced paving. Lighting can provide wayfinding to the front door of the building, and lush planting can also coexist in a desert climate to provide shade and biophilic design. There are also a level of design details in the paving that can signify the entrance to the space and provide wayfinding throughout the space between the two buildings. And these are just a few of those ideas as demonstrated in our work. We've identified the space in front of the MACC as an outdoor plaza, as I noted. This would also incorporate a portion of Cleveland Square Park as potentially a viewing and seating platform for something to be projected onto the side of the building. And in addition to those amenities, we have identified other items that are typical of a plaza space of this caliber, and that includes sometimes water features, enhanced paving, stormwater management incorporated into indigenous planting, shade structures, fans, sculptures based on found objects in the landscape. We believe that materiality should be reflective of the place, and yeah. There are also opportunities in the plaza and the park for both programming. This would be weekly or monthly events that invite people into the space. This can be yoga in the park, outdoor movie theaters, farmers markets or artisans fairs. Also special events. This may be the beginning of a parade or march. This could be the place where you would have a tree lighting during the holidays. And as I touched on previously, we believe that planting should be of the place, appropriate to the climate, provide habitat, shade, be resilient and low water use.
So here are some initial ideas we had of how the program would fit into the existing building. The black box needs certain height requirements, which does not fit into the existing building. So we have created the black box outside of the existing building footprint. A new entrance to connect the two, the lobby and the black box, with the exhibit gallery. As Marcy mentioned, it is meant to house traveling exhibits and needs to meet certain security requirements. The existing auditorium with direct access to the green rooms directly across is the cooking classroom and the catering kitchen in the lobby. The back of house, the very important elements are connected to the loading dock and the prep workshop. On the second floor, we have directly across from the elevator, the community gallery, the oral history and recording studio, which requires sound attenuation. We also have the maker space, the digital art studio, the hands-on studio, and the dance studio, the artist in residence and the staff offices with their restrooms. We have kept the existing restrooms of the existing building, which serve the second floor. And on the third floor, very exciting, we have the dining and bar area with its food prep and bar service. We have access by raising the stairs and also through the elevator. We have proposed new restrooms on this floor. And also for life safety, we have extended a second set of stairs. This area would be a great place so you could see downtown. You have 180 views, and that is why having restrooms and to have upstairs right there is a very important part for this bar area. So what we have learned, right now I'm going to launch a poll, which we did in the focus group, and after that we'll show the focus group poll results. You should be seeing the poll right now. And please start voting. Can everybody see the poll? We'll give you some minutes to answer the poll.
Also, if you have any questions on any of the poll questions, please feel free to ask.
Daniela, Rosemary is saying that the poll is not visible. Is anybody else having trouble
I can see the poll.
with the poll? Okay.
Can any of the other attendees not see the poll?
I see people are answering. It's a pop-up, so it might be in another window.
Right. It's so it's not part of the presentation screen. It comes up as its own window so that you can actually click in the answers. Perhaps it's shrunk down if you can't see it.
As a green stripe.
So somebody has asked why there's no space for additional comments. So because these are polls, they all have to be multiple choice, so we could tabulate these and get reports from these. But you're welcome to submit your comments or questions in the Q&A portion. So if you have any questions, you may include them here. If you have any comments, you may also include them here. These will also be kept as part of the record of this webinar. I think we'll give everyone maybe a minute or two. If anybody needs a little bit more time, please let us know in the Q&A. And again, please feel free
Okay.
to comment on any of the questions here in the Q&A.
Daniela, did you see the question?
The poll not visible?
Or
That one? That's the only
Kelly
one.
sent you a message.
Oh. So if you want to scroll down as you answer the polls.
There's 10 questions. I'm good. Just have one more minute on the poll. Okay, I am, if anybody needs a little more time, please let us know right now in the Q&A. Otherwise, I'm going to end the polling. Please let us know in the Q&A portion if you need more time for the poll. Okay, we'll give you a little more time. Again, the poll is not to be shown on the screen where the presentation is. It is another pop-up window. So it might be on your, on the bottom of your browser. You might need to open it. It's not part of the PowerPoint presentation. It's another window that you should see. It has a green band. We've been asked for a little more time on the poll.
Yeah, that's fine. I see that some people could still not leave comments. So for example, if you have a comment on question 10 in the Q&A portion, you could say, for question 10, I have this additional comment. And we will tabulate that as part of the report as well.
If you are having trouble with the poll right now, the poll will be posted on the MACC website. It is going to be the exact same poll, and you can answer it then if you're having trouble with the poll on the Zoom platform. And in the Q&A portion, Daniela provided the website where everything will be posted. So if you look at the poll portion, you can see what everybody answered right now. And I will go really quickly through what the people in the focus group had the same poll you did. And we are going to go through it really quickly. Most of the people answered that they had attended a cultural event outside of El Paso in Ciudad Juarez. What kind of cultural events do you or your household attend? The hands-on events and the art exhibits and galleries were the most popular ones. How frequent do you attend the events? At least once a month. Where in El Paso do you attend events? It is El Paso Public Spaces, the most popular answer. How important is it for our youth? Everybody, there was no other answer, but very important. In which future MACC programs or events or activities are you most interested in participating? The overall most popular answer was media art workshops and visual art exhibits. Also, educational classes. What do you think will attract more people to the MACC? Establishing an authentic sense of community. What are some other ways the MACC could engage with El Paso's regional communities? Artist exchange, sorry. Is there a need for programs that serve certain groups, and if so, which ones? Local artists, and I think the MACC will do this justice. What role do you envision the MACC taking on in El Paso's cultural and social life, helping build community capacity and leadership? Okay, before we continue, Ben has a message for us.
And Marcela, after Ben's message, if you could introduce the team and everyone's roles, I think that would be really helpful as we move into the design portion of the presentation.
Yes, I can introduce everybody again to see if people just joined.
All right, I just wanted to clarify for everyone who has joined us this morning that this workshop is to help us proceed with design. However, a determination has been made on this project and a number of other projects related to the city's ongoing strategy to address budgetary shortfalls related to COVID-19. The MACC will continue to design, finalize design, but will not move to construction at this time until a later date when funding can be identified. Again, this is part of a strategy the city has identified to look at particular projects that would add to the operational costs of the city moving forward. Those are being postponed, although they will continue with design. So thank you.
Okay, before we go into the second part, if we would like to have a little Q&A session. If you have any questions of what we've shown so far, this is a good time to type in your questions. If anybody has any questions about what we talked about so far. I will introduce the team again. We have Marcy Goodwin and Cameron Boudrum from M. Goodwin Museum Planning. We have Christine Scagland from Tenike Architects, Daniela Quesada from the city, and Ben Fife. And myself, Marcela Tolini, Project Manager for Exigo Architecture. I do want to mention that Tenike Landscape Architects are the landscape architects that have worked in the UTEP landscape, and I know it's very popular here in El Paso. Okay, we have no questions right now in the Q&A, so I'm going to proceed with the presentation.
Marcela?
Yes.
Just a little brief comment. I think Pacelli had asked us to mention where we had worked in El Paso before. And we have worked many years ago at the beginning of my career on the creation of the art museum in downtown El Paso. We worked with Becky Duvall-Reese and her team at that time.
Okay. So I will continue now.
A few questions popping up in the Q&A now.
Okay. Ben, do you want to answer the question about the collection? We can't hear you.
Yes, I'll go ahead and I'll answer that question in the Q&A. Unless, do you want me to address it here now?
No.
Okay.
It will be answered in the Q&A. We will have a larger segment of Q&A questions at the very end of the presentation. This is just to cover what we've seen so far and if you had any questions that needed attention at the moment. But we will have a larger Q&A session at the very end. Okay, I will continue with the presentation now. Now that we're looking at the design of the exterior portion of the building, we started looking at the surrounding neighborhood, the site context, and the built environment. We looked at regional building typologies, the materials palette, and not only are we looking at materials, we are looking at ornamentation, patterns, such as repetition and linear movement. We began looking at the adjacent building, the original 1953 building of the library, with its materials, limestone, rock, and concrete. I'll look at the banner building, a 1930s concrete building that shows ornamentation verticality. The architects were Trost and Trost, shaped the architecture of downtown El Paso and brought the architectural style of Chicago. Another Trost and Trost building in an Art Deco style here is the Bassett Tower with limestone and concrete. The El Paso del Norte Hotel, one of El Paso's nicest landmarks, also by Trost and Trost. The Crest Building, this one brought ornamentation and terracotta. The newly renovated high-rise with Art Deco detailing at the top and bottom, the use of brick, limestone, and stone. Getting farther away from the MACC site and around the Chihuahua area, we can see some of the buildings that have the window patterns and the bricked ornamentation, typical of the 19th century and early 20th century buildings. A more vernacular or local architecture at the Segundo Barrio, and we could start looking at more current buildings like the pool, where the brick and the verticality was brought in to connect to the existing. Flourishing are expressions that are common in the Mexican American community and neighborhoods, such as these murals that are located throughout the city. What we are gathering from this research is a vocabulary that helps us generate an architecture expression in the new MACC, not only for the national Mexican American culture, but more so of a regional and local Mexican American culture in El Paso. So looking at the surrounding neighborhood, we can see the Bassett and the brickstone patterns. And here are some examples of these applications in contemporary architecture. We also have the Sacred Heart Church showing these examples. Equally, we see the materials in the facades, the material patterns and ornamentation. In this, we can see current buildings and interpretations of elements of existing buildings and how we translate these into the contemporary architecture by using the patterns, the materials, and the ornamentation. The translation of the use of those patterns, murals, and materials in contemporary buildings would be through the digital facade. Here are some diagrams that illustrate the design process. In pink, we see the location of what will be now the MACC. We have the connectivity, which is pedestrian and vehicular access to the site, shown through arrows, Franklin, and how the connection through El Paso to the new Children's Museum, and the connectivity to the Museum of History and the Chihuahua Stadium. The access to the MACC would be through Cleveland Square, where the front door would be located, but then also equal important entrance would be the connection between the MACC and the main library. Also very important to say is that the MACC is located where there is a lot of transit accessibility. Again, as mentioned earlier in the presentation, you have the Brio and the streetcar. A site limitation that we have for the MACC is the location of the loading dock for the main library. We thought that the use of the loading dock for the main library in the MACC would create a better program for the MACC, and that is why we have kept the loading dock the same for the MACC and the main library. As you can see, we have looked at different locations for the black box. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, the black box has certain height requirements, which is why added square footage is needed in order to have this programmatic element. We looked at different locations. We looked at having the black box close to Missouri. We looked at having it right up against Franklin Avenue, having it in an angle to create the entrance, but programmatically what made sense was having it right up against the MACC, so it could create that connection between the lobby, the art exhibits, and the entrance. By locating the black box there, we have the need to create a new entrance for the MACC that is very prevalent and inviting a connection between what we'll be creating in Cleveland Square. We are looking into how the building might create this envelope of inviting and embracing people as they walk in on Cleveland Square. A very important part of this is the location of the bar area and the 180-degree view terrace on the 3rd floor. It would connect to how programmatically the Cleveland Square works, and then we will have another part of the program and people enjoying this set from the looking on from the terrace on the 3rd floor. Another important part of the MACC is the digital facade, and we looked at different areas of where this digital facade could be located. The last slide shows where we are proposing to locate this digital facade in order to connect to the programmatic needs and what we will be creating in Cleveland Square.
Hi, this is Christine Skagland again from Ten Eyck Landscape Architects. And as Marcella noted, we were the firm that did the campus transformation project at UTEP that many of the panelists may be familiar with. And similarly, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this site, but just a brief overview. We have the existing library and the Museum of History with Cleveland Square Park in between. The conditions are such that the library actually sits 9 feet below the museum. So a lot of the site design will be driven by those constraints. They are actually opportunities for us as well, because that enables us to use that grade change to our advantage with part of the park to set up for a potential amphitheater on that digital display that Marcella just explained. Additionally, we've identified the space between the amphitheater and the Black Box Theater as the new entry plaza and approach to the Mexican American Cultural Center. As such, that wants to be a relatively flat, probably paved surface that can facilitate events and flexible use and possible overflow from what's going on inside the Black Box Theater. Because of the grade changes that are occurring, as noted, pedestrian connectivity, ADA accessibility are all great considerations and drivers in the final design solution. And finally, we would like to create a gateway feature that frames the new building entry, provides wayfinding, views to the cultural center to the south, and announces to the community that they are arriving to this place. Also, as noted on this site diagram, are the 2 transit stations immediately adjacent our site. Next. So from there, we start to study how you move about the space and how you consider a flat plaza, how you use that sloping park as a potential seating and amphitheater space, providing shade to visitors so they want to be there, but also maintaining open sight lines, both to that digital facade, but also to the view to the south. So we would like to create some sort of gateway, like I mentioned, and it's sketched in the lower portion of this screen, where you're framing the front door, you're providing some intuitive wayfinding, people know where they're going. In this scheme, we've addressed the ADA accessibility by maintaining a portion of the connection between the library and the museum, but the grade change is challenging. There's a portion of the sidewalk that would remain, so I consider this to be a smaller footprint on the park, preserving some of the existing hardscape, making a smaller amphitheater move, and simply using some of those existing connections between the 2 buildings. This one thinks differently. It tries to strengthen the connection between the MACC and the museum. If you've ever been out there, the existing path feels rather pinched and non-intuitive, non-visual. Oh, I don't know if I can, I don't know if you can see my, I would like to point, but so there are stairs that connect you from the front door of the new MACC to the museum. And in this scheme, we've widened those, made that a more visual connection. Those are stairs that break away to these lawn terraces that would provide level seating for performances in the plaza space below. And in this scheme, we take a little bit more of the park, but we wrap the ADA path around the other side of the lawn. And this is a 5% or less, so it's a fairly gentle slope, but it doesn't allow people in wheelchairs to get to the front door of the museum easily. And similarly, setting up an open view corridor to El Paso to the south, to the front door. As noted, these spaces can be used for a multitude of opportunities. Musical performances, food trucks, artisan fairs, cultural dances and parades, exercise, markets.
Here we have some visuals of how the MACC and the site designs integrate. This is the first site concept that Christine showed. This is just showing the massing of the entrance of the MACC and how Cleveland Square would be redesigned and how both integrate in creating also additional spaces for programmatic events outside of the building. In this one, in the first site concept, this area of the black box would be the digital facade. And here this is where the redesign of Cleveland Square comes, where you could see and appreciate the digital facade. Here's the second site concept. In it, we also have the digital facade in this wall, as mentioned in the earlier diagrams. But here you can see the connection to the History Museum, as Christine showed, through the ramp or through the steps. This is a more formal amphitheater, and it forms more of Cleveland Square. But we think that this one creates a very nice performance space outside to house different programs that will now not be held inside of the building. Another thing we will be locating is the Men & Company new sculpture. And it will be provided a location here in Cleveland Square. These are just some other images of how the massing that we are proposing for the addition of the black box and the new entrance of the MACC. And this is the redesign for Cleveland Square. This is just the overall top view of that design. So right now we want to hear from you. I'm going to launch another poll. Some of the poll questions are related to images, and I will be leaving up the slides up so you can see the images that relate to the poll. I'm going to give you a little more time to answer question number 4. that relates to the slide that is already on the screen, and then I will be changing the slide for the different imagery. Remember, this poll will be also posted with the images on the MACC website.
I want to remind everyone that the poll is a separate window. So if toggling between looking at the presentation, your poll disappears, you might want to minimize the presentation and try to locate the pop-up window where the poll is.
Okay, I'm going to move on and change the slide. I do want to address one of the questions that says that there are very few grass spaces downtown. There are very few green spaces downtown, and we are looking into keeping this a green space. The steps would be green, and we will want to keep Cleveland Square as a green area and not overtake it with a lot of concrete, as you can see in the site diagrams that were shown by Christine. And the last question of the poll is where we ask you which one of the site designs you prefer. And Christine, you can elaborate more on that.
Sorry, that's a question for the design team about which scheme we prefer?
No, one of the questions is, or it's more so a statement, but I do agree that there are very few green spaces downtown, and we just want to reiterate that we are keeping it a green space.
Yeah, 100%. I think there will be some balance with the amount of paving that will be required to program the plaza, but we do anticipate that amphitheater being lawn and also planting beds that would incorporate, native and drought tolerant, climate appropriate planting in the area. So absolutely, and trees for shade.
One of the questions is, what is an Instagrammable feature that is something that goes viral in social media? It could be a pink wall or something that attracts people that want to go there and take their picture. And once they're there to take a picture, they're going to go, okay, I want to go into the Mexican American Cultural Center and see one of their exhibitions.
If I may jump in too, I'd like to address the fact that the current Cleveland Square design that we have right now features a lot of hardscaping as well, with a curvilinear path and hardscaping that actually support two public art pieces, which are canopies. And so the new design actually, in my mind, is probably not very different in terms of the amount of grass to concrete that you're seeing that we have now. It's just distributed differently to allow for easier programming.
I agree.
Christine, I don't know if you'd like to maybe speak to one of the questions. They're wondering if we could describe what an Instagrammable feature is.
Oh, I guess it's something that's coming up in our day and age now, but people do like to take selfies, and that could be any number of architectural or site amenities that activate a space, that draw people. I mean, here in Austin, there's the side of a coffee shop that says, "I love you so much." It's spray painted on there, and people line up all day long taking pictures of that sign. So I think it's a way of promoting this place as unique to itself. I'm not even suggesting what that might be, simply that consider in the site design and in the architectural design how to intrigue people into wanting to be there and share their experience.
I would like to add one small thing here, that another aspect of a cultural center that's different from a museum is that cultural centers tend to be, they have long hours. And so they're open from early in the morning, where the kids in school groups might go through, or people who are downtown early, and then they go into the evening and night, and they have many more events. And so these outdoor spaces will be repositioned to help support events on all of the museum, all of the center's areas, indoors and out. And also the Instagrammable part can be, one of the things is that it should relate to the programs the center is going to present, and that will reinforce the center's activities and presence. Some of you had questions about who is M. Goodwin Museum Planning, who is Marcy Goodwin and Cameron Boodram, who are they? We are museum planners. We work with museums around the country. We've worked on about 150 projects. Many are cultural centers, most are museums, and we work with the community. We worked recently in Laredo. We've worked all over Texas and New Mexico. We have 2 branches, one in Albuquerque and one in Los Angeles. And so we work with communities and cities and cultural entities to find ways to articulate their needs so that the design team can make the best, most functional design. Cameron, do you agree? Any comments?
No, you said it best.
Okay.
We have a question, Christine, and it says, can you please further explain the proposed redesign of the corner of Cleveland Square at Franklin in Santa Fe?
The gateway between coming up from El Paso?
No, I think the
Santa Fe and so
If I may, actually, if I may jump in, Christine,
yes.
Santa Fe and Franklin right now is for the most part unaddressed. If you look at the slide we're on right now, you can see that the proposed sort of tweaks that we are getting to Cleveland Square are really more towards the library side of the park. The question is addressing the side of the park that faces the ballpark and is closer to the History Museum. At this moment, there are no plans for redesign there, with the exception of citing the Men of Company E Memorial. This is a companion piece made up of 6 over life-size, monumentally scaled bronze soldiers addressing World War II heroes from Segundo Barrio in central El Paso. And so there will be a plinth that would be put in the park, but for the most part, the rest of the park will remain as is.
I believe there is some confusion. There's a comment on the Q&A that they believe that a stage is being proposed in the corner of Franklin and Santa Fe. So Christine, maybe if you could talk about how the steps, how they actually step towards the MACC, and how the digital facade would actually be what viewers are looking at.
Let me go back to the 3D, one of the 3D, so I think this is easier to envision than the flat image.
So the massing on the left is the existing museum, and it actually sits 9 feet higher than the current library. That's a little deceptive because the entrance to the library are on this side currently. There are stairs stepping down to the finished floor of the library, so you don't get a sense of that full elevation change in the current conditions. What we're proposing is that the whole of the new building is at the same elevation, so that requires us to address the full 9 feet of change on the exterior of the buildings. And that's why you see the stairs stepping up toward the museum. And so that natural topography that we're going to carve into actually sets up nicely for a kind of gentle amphitheater type seating. And you would be viewing the side of the new black box theater where the architects are proposing a digital display screen. That's right. Not a formal stage. So don't get me wrong, we're not going to pop something up out of the ground. The intention is simply that this is an enhanced paving surface that can do double duty, inviting guests to the cultural center, but also hosting performances and outdoor movies, for example.
One other thing is that someone asked about the Border Heritage Center collection at the El Paso Library. And that will continue. And because, as we mentioned earlier, the MACC will not be a collecting institution, it will be a producing institution. So the library may choose to keep things that originate at the MACC by students or participants or exhibitions or whatever, and then they can be stored and retained at the library. It's all a collaborative situation.
Another important thing to note is in the digital facade, you can also show murals when there are no movies or any programs. It can also function as an art piece.
I believe it's been asked that we repeat Instagrammable program. Very briefly, Christine, if you could just, give.
Right, I think it's a sign of the times, but you will see people gathering at unusual or unique moments in the landscape to take selfies and share them with the world. And we're simply promoting the possibility that the architecture or the site design incorporate some of those fun graphic elements that would identify the MACC as a unique place that would be representative of the heritage and the location. The example I used before was a mural in Austin that simply says, I love you so much. And people line up in front of it all day long and take selfies and share them with the world. In Los Angeles, there's a retail store that's painted lipstick pink. And you wouldn't believe it, but people take their photo in front of that wall all day long. And everybody knows it now. So it's kind of fun and whimsical and relevant to where we are culturally today, but it also has an opportunity to activate this place.
Another question is, how can the MACC have a third floor? We will be extending we will be creating a larger elevator than what it has right now. There are 2 elevator shafts and only one is utilized. We will have a larger capacity elevator that will extend to the 3rd floor, and we'll be also adding the stairs, 2 stairs for life safety that will access the 3rd floor, and it will have its restrooms in order to have this be a great rooftop bar with 180 views of downtown.
Now, there is a question about the cooking classroom. The design is not yet finalized. The design is just beginning. Some of you have asked how many people. We're talking about 15 to 20. One of the issues on the cooking classroom is that, is this for viewers from the outside or is it for students on the inside? As someone who has done art classes in the kitchen, I've done drawing in the kitchen and stuff, it's very difficult to manage a group of especially younger children if there are people outside watching you. And so these considerations will be discussed as we plan this. We appreciate your thoughts about having it be public, but we will find ways to advertise the cooking classes and activities inside the MACC through various other formats.
One question that came up that I would like to address was related to, excuse me, related to programming and how these programming decisions were made in terms of community input, focus groups, etc. The MACC has a very long history at this point, dating back to 2013, related to various phases of input that have been guided by various staff members, departments, at this point, multiple consultants, multiple architects, and multiple sub-consultants. In addition, Council created a standalone committee related to the Mexican American Cultural Center that was specifically designed to recommend, to create recommendations on the name, programming, amenities, and also location. What we did with those recommendations on programming, which went to Council and were approved, is that they were actually then used to create a programming plan that was developed by an architect and a cultural consultant that was then taken back to City Council. That was for a very specific location, the Abraham Chavez Theater, which unfortunately the private sector group that had coalesced around that and promised to raise $20 million was not able to show capacity to be able to do that. And so the city decided to look at other options. When that happened, we decided though that we did not want to throw away the years of work and the commitment of a really strong committee that had met publicly with lots of public input. And so we decided to take those programming recommendations and continue to use those to drive the conversations that we are in now. Lastly, I will say there has been one focus group related to the plans that we're talking about today. This is similar to what we did with the library component. The focus group was made up of people who are working within arts and culture in El Paso, as well as economic development and tourism. All of them actually were Latino or Latina, and they were, we met with them, went over the same presentation we're going over with you today to be able to assess their feedback and concerns.
Another question is, your design for both library and the MACC level is the 3rd floor taller than the library roof. The rooftop bar is actually on the roof. There is no 3rd floor being added. We're utilizing the roof for the bar, for the open aired bar on the 3rd floor. but there's no floor added. It's just the roof being repurposed. And there's another question that asked about whether the Border Heritage Collection would have improvements for the collections. It will have. The Border Heritage will have its own section and it will be improved under the library renovation. And it will have its own area now for the items, the collection that is in the vault, for the viewing area of those special items.
I think on the programming right now for the kitchen and the cooking classes, we're still looking at where that would be and how it would function. No decisions have been made. Part of it depends on the location. Part of it depends on the ages of the students and the types of classes there, and also health laws and keeping things applicable to El Paso's health laws. So all of that will be parts of the consideration, but it's premature to make any design decisions now.
So so another question is again about the Border Heritage Collection. It will be refinished. It will have new finishes, new flooring, new ceiling, but it will now have its own glass-in area where for the viewing of the elements in the vault. It is now going to only be used for that. I know there is currently a special a location for that, but this will now have it will be glassed in, and it will only sit for around 8 people to use it at the same time. Now the Border Heritage will still have its reading tables and its collection there, but now we're making the this area more secure for the elements. Yes, I will. I have been asked to go to the second concept. Let me go to the slide. A question is, has the COVID-19 affected the design for community and public spaces? Not at the moment.
Can I add to that?
Yes.
Okay, I think part of the point on all of this, all of the MACC Center is security and creating a functional, operable, supervisable, is that such a word, center, and that you can supervise people's activities, and also that things are easily cleaned and easily maintained, because that will have a challenging, or it's not going to have a luxurious budget. It's going to have a City of El Paso budget. And so everything has to be maintainable within these restrictions. That's what we're thinking of. And all of that goes with thinking about how does one maintain the spaces in a easily achieved way, and also keeping the spaces secure so that there are limited entries so that the security team can supervise who comes and goes.
We have been asked to show the all-white rendering of site concept 2. Just let me know if this is the one you were referring to. Okay, this is site concept 2. I will show you. This is the other site concept from a different point of view. in the white rendering?
I think they might both be called concept one, so maybe that's leading to some confusion.
Okay.
Am I misreading that?
Yes, no, you're right.
I would like to add that all of these are concepts and none are designs. So they are kind of out there for the community to look at and give us your thoughts about the concepts. And all of these responses will then be incorporated in our design approach.
The offices for the library staff, there was a question about that. They will be located in the building where the library is located, and they will be located where the areas are. The children's staff will be located in the children's area, and so on. Do we have any other questions? Again, both polls will be posted on the website.
So Marcella, there's a question about the library comment.
Yes, Daniela, do you want to address that question?
So right now the library is under its construction document design. We do not have anything that we could share with the public at this time as far as any finished renderings. We're also going through the process of working it in within our budget. And so we are not prepared at this time, at this presentation, because it is related exclusively for the MACC, to show you any kind of design features or concepts for the library. But the design team has been working on it based on the feedback that we got from both the focus group and the community meeting. We held updates at all the district representatives' monthly meetings. If you were fortunate enough to attend those, you might have seen some of the presentations that we put up as far as gathering the feedback and how we're moving forward. We can definitely make some of these floor plans more available. We could work at how to make those accessible to you. So thank you for the comments. We'll take that into consideration.
I have been asked to show the budget again. So again, this is the construction budget, including furniture, fixtures, and equipment. No, another question is, I'm going to answer this, but Christine, if you want to add on. The question is, if the amphitheater take up the entire Cleveland Square? And no, it does not, as shown in the diagrams. I'm just going to leave this slide right now because it was asked, and then I'll go back to the slides that show the design, but no, the amphitheater does not take up the entire Cleveland Square. It takes half or even less than that, but we'll go back to that slide where we show both site concepts, and in both, it is not taking up entire Cleveland Square.
Correct. We are leaving intact the formal entrance to the museum. So to the west of Cleveland Square Park is essentially will remain as it is. And what you're seeing in the rendering, and Marcel will switch over there, the portion of the site concept that's colored is essentially the portion where improvements would occur. There's a image that's somewhat obscuring the corner there at the southwest. There you go. That is all the other half of the park that will essentially remain, with the exception of the placement of the Company E sculpture.
So also, just as a reminder, these are concepts, they're not designs, and they're being shown to the community as a way of saying, what are your thoughts about these? But they are not the final design. Inevitably, the design will have some elements from one part or another, and they'll include other elements as the design gets closer to the details of being realized. Ben, do you want to answer the part about the library budget?
Actually, I think it'd probably be more appropriate for Daniela to answer the question about budgets at this moment.
Yeah, so as it was mentioned earlier, given our current situation with COVID-19, we are proceeding with the completion of the design of both the library and the MACC. The budgets that were shown are still our budgets. However, we are going to have these projects completed only to design, so that when we are in a better financial position and the economic environment is better suited to take on the big project, the big undertaking of construction, then we will pick it up. But it is under the budget that was shown. That is what once we do start construction, that is the budget that we will keep to.
There is a comment or a question, sorry, about is there a proposed new walling path in Cleveland Square Park closer to Santa Fe Street? I don't necessarily understand what you mean, a walking path. There will be, so what will be closer to Santa Fe would be the location of the Men and Company E monument, but the redesign of Cleveland Square that we are proposing is closer to the MACC portion.
I would reiterate that on the Santa Fe side of the park, excuse me, there really are no changes, and that would also include changes to the current sidewalk or entry points into Cleveland Square or the Museum of History.
Is there construction of a walking path part of Men of Company E project? Not at this time. There's another comment that it seems that site concept, if I understand this correctly, that site concept number 2 seems to have a better integration with Cleveland Square Park as a whole.
So I think they also want clarification on whether concept A matches to concept 1 or 2.
Okay, so concept A is concept 1. This is concept 2, as you're seeing it right now, where it has the ramp. And then this is concept 1, which is concept A in the pool. Does anybody have any other questions, or do you want me to return to a certain slide?
I have a question for everyone. And if the participants, we now have 33 total, I guess that includes us 6. And so if there was one thing that you liked about anything you saw today, tell us what it was. Just pick one thing that you think is cool or fun, or that you learned, or that you think is good. Tell us, because we want to, of course, retain that then.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the slide where we have the second floor. I don't have the extent of the library, which was shown in the library community meetings and the focus groups, but this is the second floor, and this is how the MACC, this is the location of where the MACC and the library will connect. This is the entrance on the second floor.
And this gray part that you could see where Marcella had the cursor in the right, that is still library offices. Is it the teen center now?
This is still the teen town, and it's still located where it is right now. And then here is the entrance from the MACC to the library and vice versa. I can't show the children's area right now because that is part of the library presentation, and I don't have that slide in this presentation.
For those of you who have written in what you like, thank you. We like that.
Yes, thank you all for your comments.
There is a question related to the connection doors between the MACC and the library. Right now, I apologize, I've been a little under the weather this week. right now the plan is for the buildings to have unique entrances from various points, and in the interior, the ability to connect through an entryway. Those entryways could be opened up to have more porosity between the MACC and the library when it's appropriate, when there's collaborative programming, maybe during shared opening hours. But if there were opportunities or times that we needed to close those off, we would have the ability to do that. Marcy's already mentioned that cultural centers tend to have very long operating hours. And so it is not out of the realm of the possible that after the library closes for the evening, that we could still have evening cooking classes at the MACC. There might be performances. There could perhaps be rental spaces that are being activated. And so we would have those doors closed so that the library could remain protected, or would not necessarily have to have on-site security or staff that would add to their budgetary operational concerns at those times.
Here is where the artist in residence would be located, and these are floor-to-ceiling windows facing Franklin. And then another question is, right here in this area is where the children's area will be located. Thank you for those of you who keep typing in the elements of the presentation that you liked, to make sure that we can keep those. Let's see.
What does that mean, the white space beside the word day?
I think it's the gray. And it's because
she
this
may be
is a
referring to
children's
the theater. I think she may be referring to the mod. Sorry. Yes, I think she's referring to, yes, the.
This is because it's double height. This is the space for the double height of the auditorium, which is right here. Is that the space you were referring to? If not, let us know. That's okay. If we can let us know if we're answering your questions, if you need further information on any of the questions we have already answered. Again, the Q&A portion will be recorded as part of the presentation and will be also posted along with the poll questions and the video from the presentation.
And on that note, we will work to get everything uploaded this week. So please give us some time to get that. As Ben mentioned, we will advertise for it through social media once everything's up and ready on our MACC webpage. So please don't expect it to be on this weekend. Give us a few days. It'll probably be updated, you know, in the next few days. But we will let you know.
we still have some time for more questions or comments. Please, please let us know your thoughts. A lot of people have really liked the digital facade location and the amphitheater, the landscaping change to Cleveland Square.
And I think just from a practical standpoint, we'd be curious to know how the Zoom interface works for everyone. Is this a good compromise in the day of COVID to do these meetings virtually?
Thank you, Christine. Yes, that's a good question. We want to hear your feedback on that.
It's the new normal, so any
Yes.
recommendations y'all have
Exactly.
for making this better or work, or if you think it's great, that's good too.
So again, both designs do consider integrating and maintaining a large green area of Cleveland Square. Both of them have the amphitheaters as being a green lawn area, but as you can see, both show that we are keeping a large portion of just open lawn in Cleveland Square Park.
As a programming person, what I see is that these two concepts have taken what could have been just a flat lawn with a big drop down and stairs and turned it into a stepped lawn that you can use for multiple purposes. You can use it for seating to watch films and videos. You could use it for outdoor lunches or for parties on the, on the lawn. And you could use it to hang out with friends. The teachers in the classes for the MACC can use it for outdoor classes, like for drawing in the park or something like that, or outdoor music sessions. And so it's a kind of flexible space. It is not simply for viewing videos alone. It's for a variety of things. And also, because we'll have drama classes and music classes, we could have performances of the student work and have visitors come and sit, parents, grandparents, sit in the audience and watch.
Christine, if you want to address, there is a question about whether site concept B would create a concrete or paved ramp directly through Cleveland Square.
Well, site concept B does have a path through the park, yes. I don't think that we are landing on any materials at this point. This is an opportunity to align with the museum entry. This path could do any number of switchbacks to get you up to the museum, but this is the most direct and navigable path for a wheelchair. And as I noted before, to the left of that path would remain lawn. So we believe that that would still be a flexible place for people to gather, potentially to view the digital screen or otherwise. the lack of color simply depicts some existing conditions to remain.
So Christine, on this one question about site concept A versus B, it seems to me like both of them keep a lot of uninterrupted green space in Cleveland Square. Do you think that's true?
We can't hear you.
That was inevitable at least once, right? A connects to a remnant of the existing path. This may be a budgetary constraint. It's just a consideration of how to preserve some of the existing elements in the park and still design the necessary programming into the amphitheater and plaza space. It feels to me like that could be done more gracefully, which is where B comes into play, rather than sort of trying to force some connectivity and some alignment to elements that don't necessarily work. As I mentioned, there are significant constraints with the grade changes and providing an accessible path. So, but yes, A would continue one big lawn, essentially.
We want to thank you all for bearing with us, you know, over this experimental presentation, because we're new to all this, and we hope it's working out. We would much rather see you all in person, and we would much rather have a more extended conversation. But what we can also suggest is, as the ability to travel between cities increases, at some point when you go to Austin or you go to Dallas or you go to Chicago or Philadelphia, that you take time to visit the other organizations that are Mexican-American cultural centers of different kinds, to understand the challenges that these organizations have faced in their own hometowns and how they work. Because when you're doing it in real time, there's always some limitations that you have to live inside. And so we thank you again for participating with us.
Yes, thank you to everyone. I think at this time we will conclude our meeting. If there are any last minute questions, comments, again, we will advertise as soon as the MACC webpage has this recording available, and the polls as well. But thank you all for joining us. It's much appreciated, your time to see our presentation and give us your feedback.
Yes, thank you for giving us time from your Saturday and sitting in a computer. Not, I mean, this is how we have to do it. But as Marcy said, we would like to be with you and get more feedback. But thank you for taking time out of your Saturday. And with that, I believe we are done just in time. I don't know, Ben, if you want to say something before we log off.
I would just reiterate that I'm very grateful for everyone's time on this Saturday. Also knowing that so many of us who are working from home spend a lot of time at our computer at home. And so for you to give up willingly a little bit of your Saturday is really means a lot to everyone on this team. As a reminder, We're going to continue this process, but this design will actually be put on, once it's finalized, would then be put on hold until funding is identified once we get into a more certain fiscal climate. So thank you very much. Look for this presentation on the MACC website, and we look forward to continued dialogue.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good Saturday.
Thank
Bye.
you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.